Brad, a North American programmer, is also an obsessive bird watcher or birder. His life takes a complicated turn when his ex, Vicky, calls to announce that she's remarrying, which leaves Brad stunned and speechless. Brad decides to embark on a big year, an intense birdwatching competition to spot the most bird species within a year. The current record holder, Bostic, also decides to compete again upon fearing that his record might be broken. While talking with his friend, Brad admits to the impact of his birdwatching passion on his previous marriage. Meanwhile, Bostic is anxious about protecting his record. Elsewhere, CEO Jim announces his retirement to focus on birdwatching, despite his colleagues' attempts to persuade him to continue working. They try to paint a bleak picture of retirement to deter him. Done. Brad and Kenny engage in a friendly diving competition, showcasing their competitive spirit. Afterwards, Brad announces to his parents his intent to participate in the Big Year, a bird spotting contest, and asks his father for financial support to realize this dream. His ex-wife, Brenda, mentions she'll be managing Brad's travels for the year. Brad defends his plans to do the Big Year to his unimpressed father. Later, while at work, Brad is tempted by his boss, Bill, to postpone his departure with the offer of double salary to work over the weekend. Despite the position he's put in, he insists on leaving for the contest by the 20th, showing his unwavering commitment to his birding passion. Stu is birding in Canada, where he spots a rare hummingbird. During the sighting, he receives a business call from Barry and Jim about a business transaction that's stalling. Despite the urgency, Stu insists on focusing on his birdwatching, showing his dedication to the Big Year over his corporate obligations. Annie, a passionate birder, lays down strict rules for her birdwatching trip, reminding the birders that she's in control. Her tough demeanor is linked to a past incident when renowned birder Bostic led a mutiny against her over a whale sighting, for which Bostic still seems unapologetic. Annie suggests Bostic might have cheated to acquire his birdwatching record. When Bostic appears on her birdwatching trip, they exchange cold words. Despite Bostic's pleas to reconnect with his love for birds, Annie remains distrustful and warns him to stay off her bridge. Likewise, Bostic takes notice of a potential rival among the birders and offers him seasickness pills, hinting at a possible plan. During Annie's birdwatching journey, joking around with the binoculars leads to Kenny experiencing seasickness. Bostic arrives, triggering conversations about his influence on the birding community. Surprisingly, Bostic demonstrates his skill of recognizing and imitating bird sounds. Brad and Bostic discuss their individual intentions about undertaking a big year. After a frighteningly close call due to drowsiness, the latter convinces Brad to continue driving instead of resting at a hotel. Meanwhile, Brad also manages to handle a phone call from his father, who's unsupportive of his birdwatching adventure. After a near accident, Bostic and Brad spot a rare bird which Bostic considers a sign of confirmation for his birdwatching quest. Meanwhile, Brad talks to his wife about her renovation plans, which include hiring Brad's competitor. Navigating marital tension, their personal life intertwines with their passion for birds. While his wife handles renovations at home, Bostic travels to Wyoming to find a sage grouse. Meanwhile, the retired Stu is persuaded to return to his company for 2 days to salvage a derailed deal. The narrator then focuses on the migration of the ruby-throated hummingbird, symbolizing Bostic's obsessive quest. As the narrator speaks of a hummingbird braving a challenging journey, a similar struggle occurs in the domestic life of Bostic. His neglect leads his wife, Jess, to begin unapproved home renovations as a means to draw his attention away from birding. Bostic's obsession sparks a contentious conversation in their relationship. As Jess points out the necessity of Bostic's involvement in their child's upbringing, Bostic compares his birding passion to a calling, equating himself to Mozart. Amidst their brewing tension, they learn of a storm heading towards the Gulf of Mexico that could last for 72 hours, much to Bostic's interest as a birder. Bostic abruptly leaves Jess as a major bird fallout presents itself in Texas due to an incoming storm. As Ruby battles harsh weather, Bostic, the programmer, and the CEO veer towards Texas, seeing potential luck in this rare occurrence during migration season. With the fallout in action, Bostic, Stu, and Brad rush to Texas. Seeing this as their chance at the world record, they are enthusiastic despite the steep competition. Bostic, confident and competitive, hints at a playful rivalry with Stu. Bostic continues to act competitively when a rare bird sighting causes excitement. Later, at a meal, Brad orders soup to the surprise of Bostic, who believes it to be a poor choice after spending all day outdoors. Over dinner, Brad and Bostic share a conversation concerning their personal lives and aspirations. Brad confides his dissatisfaction with his unfulfilled life, expressing a desire to accomplish something meaningful. In response, Bostic reflects on his own delayed leap into his passions after retirement, sparking a deeper connection between them. Brad confesses to Bostic that he is doing a big year. Although Bostic feels an affinity with Brad, he doesn't reveal his own secret. Meanwhile, Kinney tries to amend things with his wife. A seasick encounter between Brad and Crane reveals that the latter is also participating in a big year. In this scene, Stu struggles with the decision of going after his big year or taking care of an important business deal. He is warned that if he's not involved in the incoming meeting, his employees might end up losing their jobs, creating another dilemma for Stu, who is torn between his passion and his responsibilities. The competitors make their way to the remote Attu Island, notorious among birders. Brad's mother pushes him to continue his big year, lending him her credit card to pay for the journey. Meanwhile, Stu returns to deal with the business situation with only 4 hours before his flight to Alaska. Stu leaves Attu to attend to business, where he surprisingly encounters Jim, who shares his birdwatching experience. Rick jokingly brings up Stu's hobby in their negotiation. After a tough conversation, Stu makes a rush to continue his big year. On his way, he introduces his wife Karen to his birding competitor, Kinney. As Stu rushes to the charter, he met Brad and Kinney. In a casual conversation, Brad reveals to Kinney about Stu's big year, leading Kinney to feel challenged. Unfortunately, Kinney manipulates Stu and Brad, not able to board the plane, leaving them both on the dock while Kinney takes off to seek rare bird sightings in the midst of a storm. On Attu Island, the birders settle in. Kinney is familiar with the faces and the area. The birders soon dash off as word spreads of a rustic bunting sighting, causing a stampede as they scramble in different directions trying to get a glimpse of this elusive bird. On Attu, the birders scramble over a rare eyebrow thrush sighting. Kinney runs into his arch-rival Bostic. Later, a TV news update warns of an intense snowstorm, but for the birders on the island, this could mean exotic birds flushed from Siberia. Rarities like a pin-tailed snipe and an oriental greenfinch have. On Attu, Brad confronts Stu about concealing that he's doing a big year. Stu apologizes, revealing he left Brad a voicemail confessing. Brad confesses too, admitting he told Bostic about Stu's concealed birding year. They discuss the weather and how it's affecting bird sightings on Attu. At a birding gathering, Brad, Stu, and others share their bird sighting tales, their hardest, memorable, and missed sightings. Occasional ribbing about doing a big year peppers their conversation. Next, the group watches a spectacular courtship ritual of bald eagles, reminding both Stu and Brad of their significant others back home. At the birdwatching camp, Brad showcases his impressive bird imitation skills, earning him the moniker Bird Savant. Both he and Stu share their experiences about having romantic life troubles due to their obsession with birding. Meanwhile, the group attracts seagulls with a pungent bird bait-attracting mixture. After a mishap with the bird bait-attracting mixture, it is a chaotic and hilarious scene. Later, Brad and Stu reflect on their shared struggle between personal life and their birding obsession. Encouraging each other, they decide to continue their bird-watching quest. Inspired, Stu plans to reconnect with Ellie. In Boston, Stu bumps into Ellie, his birding friend. They discuss their respective birding adventures, with Stu admiring Ellie's passion for birding. Then Ellie introduces Stu to her boyfriend Darren. Darren humorously confuses a pink-footed goose for a pink goose, providing a light-hearted end to their encounter. Stu jokingly hunts for a purple swan, sharing a playful banter with his friend Brad. As Brad expressed his feelings for Ellie, Stu encouragingly cites his own love story, giving Brad hope. Stu later becomes a grandfather to a baby boy named after him, reconnecting with his familial roots. Yet, his yearning nature as a birder makes it hard for him to remain detached from the pursuit. Stu gets triumphant over his fellow birder, Bostic, revealing a higher bird count. However, Stu's competitive streak lands him in a tricky situation when he misses the last ferry to Orcas Island, where a rare bird sighting awaits. His disappointment is quickly revealed as he sighs at the missed opportunity. Following Bostic's lead, Stu and Brad team up to tally more birds. However, their birding expedition takes a thrilling turn when they hop onto a helicopter to track Himalayan snowcocks. Despite the hazardous journey, their efforts pay off when they successfully spot the bird. High on the exhilaration of spotting Himalayan snowcocks, Stu and Brad decide they're unstoppable on their birdwatching quest. A tragic wrench is thrown into their plans, however, when Stu's dad suffers a minor heart attack. Back home, Stu tries to distract his father by showing him photos of their birdwatching achievements. Stu and Brad share the story of the underestimated golden plover bird with Brad's father, comparing the bird's unique journey to their own experiences. Later, Stu and Ted head out to identify a bird based on its call. During their search, Stu points out Ted's unusual mix of competitiveness and honesty. Stu and Kenny unexpectedly bond over birdwatching. Meanwhile, Jessica visits the clinic for her insemination procedure and gets frustrated when Kenny is unable to join her because he's in Chicago chasing a snowy owl sighting. Their shared pursuit is proving more damaging to their personal lives. While Kenny and Raymond are visiting a patient, Brad receives a call from his friend Stu. Stu informs him of a great gray owl sighting. Intrigued, Raymond decides to join Brad on the birdwatching expedition instead of mocking Kenny about his fashion choices in the 70s. Brad and Raymond chase after the great gray owl, but Raymond struggles with exhaustion. Meanwhile, Frankie is surprised to find his ex-wife, Jessica, nursing Kenny back to health. He confesses that he still loves her but can't be married to her anymore. Simultaneously, Brad pleads for a second chance from his friend. In the 40th scene, Kenny and Jessica talk about their relationship. Jessica voices her concerns about always coming second to Kenny's bird obsession. Meanwhile, Brad leaves Raymond behind in their chase for the gray owl. When Brad returns, he finds Raymond on the ground, laughing at the sight of the owl. As a Pacific storm approaches, Stu and Brad seize this opportunity to outcompete their birdwatching rivals. Brad discovers it's Thanksgiving, his family having neglected to inform him due to his commitment to the big year. Elsewhere, Kenny learns of Brad's new record and Vince Bostic is seen trying to up his game. An ambitious Kenny speculates Brad's record count while having a lonely Christmas dinner. Stu learns that his admirable bird-watching foe, Kenny, hasn't seen every bird in North America. Soon after, Stu gets a life-changing offer. His old company faces a takeover from 3M, and he's being considered for CEO. Stu is offered a CEO position at his old company, which he declines to continue his bird-watching journey and help a friend find a rare goose. They succeed in finding the elusive pink-footed goose, raising Stu's count to 741. As New Year's countdown begins, an unexpected guest surprises everyone. On New Year's Eve, Brad calls Stu to share the male mixed results. Despite their diligent efforts in the birdwatching competition, Bostic has won with 755 birds. However, Brad feels victorious about the overall journey and the quality time he and Stu spent together. The conversation also reveals that Ellie's relationship with Darren has ended. Despite losing to Bostic, both Brad and Stu celebrate their personal achievements. Bostic heads to China with his newfound fame, while Brad and Stu find great joy in birdwatching, detached from the competition. The retiring CEO introduces the young future CEO to the world of bird watching. The North American programmer, a fervent birder, explores Maine while developing a grader. The scene transitions into a closing song and credits. Symbolizing the spirit of the movie, the lyrics suggest that desire and ambition can light the path for everyone. They show that success is not just about winning the competition, but also finding personal happiness.